Hello everyone, welcome to my latest video, and there's a lot to talk about today. The main focus of today's video is going to be the Icon Sting, who just had his retirement match at the latest AEW pay-per-view, being AEW Revolution 2024. So I'm going to talk about all of that. Before I get started, though, I want to say that I am going to restart the question and answers video, so if you want to submit questions for those, send it to the email address askpatrick2024@gmail.com. That will be listed in the description. I probably won't get to the next one until after WrestleMania, because WrestleMania is just, it's WrestleMania, and that's going to dominate a lot of the discussion. But, yeah, the Q&A videos are going to be starting back up. So, if you want to send questions, go ahead and send them to that email address. So, with all of that said, let's go ahead and get started. AEW Revolution, a show that a lot of people are raving about, seem to be really well received for the most part. Some criticisms I've seen, which are, criticisms to be expected. But to give you an idea of where I'm coming from with this pay-per-view and my overall feelings on it, this is a show that to me was a one-match show going into it, where I thought, it's like, look, I don't care about anything else. And that's not a knock on anybody else. It's not a knock on any of the matches necessarily. It's more of a, I'm here for Sting, and literally nothing else. They could have had a world title match with PN News taking on Disco Inferno, and I would have been like, look, whatever, I'm just here for Sting. But the rest of the card didn't really matter to me all that much. So the fact that the card was mostly watchable, I think is a bonus, because really I was just there for the last match. I was really happy that they gave Sting the closing spot. Made the most sense to me going into the pay-per-view. I was like, most people care the most about Sting's retirement. That's the match we're all here to see. I feel like that one should close. This triple threat match for the world title isn't really that interesting, unfortunately, unless Swerve wins, which I knew he wasn't going to, so it was kind of like, whatever. So I was very glad that they gave the closing spot to Sting, because that was the match I was there to see. Before I talk about the rest of the card and the rest of the pay-per-view and do my usual chronological rundown of everything that happened, I will say that, talking about how important Sting is to me and what this match meant to me and everything else. And I've done tribute videos for Sting before in the past, and I've talked about Sting in the past. He's in my top 5 of all time, for sure. It's like, it's him. Brett's probably my favorite worker of all time. Shawn probably has the best body of work of all time. Ricky Steamboat is probably my favorite babyface of all time. Randy Savage is my favorite overall as far as combining all the attributes that makes pro wrestling great. But right there in that top 5 is the Icon Sting. I think Sting is the best superhero style character, style talent in the history of the business. And those type of guys like the Hogans, the Warriors, the Goldbergs. I throw Undertaker in there as well. It's like one of those like truly larger than life, almost comic book character come to life type of wrestler. Sting is my favorite one of that bunch. He's the guy, and I know I've told this story before on this channel, but he's the guy that made me a wrestling fan, because before him all I watched was WWF. I didn't know there was other wrestling out there. I know I've said this before in the past, but when Ric Flair showed up in the WWF in 91, I did not know who he was. I did not know that there was other wrestling out there. I thought he was just some guy that showed up with a belt claiming to be the real world champion. I had no idea what the context of that was, what that meant to the world of professional wrestling and, the fans who were fans outside of the WWF. I didn't have a clue what was going on. As far as I knew, it was just some new guy that showed up with a belt. Kind of like DiBiase did with the $1 Million title. It was just his own invented belt. As far as I knew. And keep in mind, I was 5 years old, 6 years old when Ric Flair showed up. So keep that in mind before you judge me too harshly. And it wasn't until my mom came home that day from the grocery store, and she was just handed me a wrestling magazine that she picked up, and it had Sting on the cover. And I was like, who is this guy? And I'm flipping through the pages, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's other wrestling out there? And from that moment on, I became a fan of the Stinger because I knew I had to go see him, and eventually got into WCW. And from there, I got into watching the old NWA, and I saw his matches with Great Muta, and that led me to watching some Japanese wrestling. Because of that experience I had becoming a little Stinger, it made me more open to checking out new professional wrestling, because one of the biggest hurdles that any new company has, whether it's an AEW or TNA back in the day or Ring of Honor when it first started up or whatever, is that you have that contingent of people where all they know is WWE or all they know is the past, like, WCW as well. And it's hard to get there. It's like, well, I don't know any of these people. Well, at a point in time, you didn't know who Stone Cold Steve Austin was. You got to, try new things and discover. And Sting was the guy that kind of taught me, it's like, look, if you go out there and look for somebody to cheer for, you'll find somebody you like. So somewhere, some way, somehow, you will find a guy to love, respect, and admire. And Sting was that guy for me. He was the icon of WCW for me. And those matches he had with Vader are legendary. One of my favorite series of matches of all time. I will never stop gushing over those matches. I loved his feud with Lex Luger. Lex Luger, who I feel is an underrated talent, by the way. I've said that before. Loved his feud and his work with Lex Luger. Of course, his series of matches with Ric Flair are legendary, especially the first one at the Clash of the Champions and Great American Bash 1990, where he won the title. I loved his feud with Rick Rude. I thought that was great and showed what Rude was capable of, that he wasn't just a WWF character. He actually was like a great talent and could work with somebody like a Sting. And then, of course, you have his transformation into the Crow character and the feud with the NWO. I put up there as one of the greatest storylines in the history of wrestling. You look up, the all-time great storylines. Hogan Savage, the rise and fall of the Mega Powers, Austin McMahon, Hogan Andre, top tier greatest storylines of all time. Sting versus the NWO was right up there, towards the top. And the only thing that keeps it from being number one for a lot of people is the fact that Starrcade 97 didn't go the way it should have, but that's another discussion for another time. When the last Nitro happened, I, like many others, thought, oh, is Sting going to go to WWE or is this it? It's one or the other. It's like he's either going to WWE or this is it. And we may never see him again. And of course, there's that legendary line, the only thing that's for sure about Sting is that nothing's for sure. It's showtime, folks! And that was it. And then he shows up in TNA. And I had been, when Sting, of course, he'd worked one of the weekday pay-per-views, one of the Wednesday pay-per-views for a tag match. So he'd appeared before 2005. But when Sting first showed up, after they'd gotten the deal on Spike TV and all that other stuff, it felt like a big deal. And I was like, ooh, I haven't really seen Sting for a few years. And that was a great get for them. And he did really well in TNA and had some great stuff there. What was, his feud with Jarrett was really good. His feud with Christian, or his matches with Christian. I don't think they ever had a full-blown pay-per-view match, but they did have a lot of great interactions on TV. His matches with AJ, his matches with Kurt, their match at Bound for Glory 2007 I thought was fantastic. Even the match he had with Hogan at that one Bound for Glory, which nobody thought was going to be any good, myself included, ended up stealing the show with their whole Return of the Jedi angle that they did with Hogan's face turn. So Sting was great for TNA, and then he left TNA, and then he went to WWE, which is something that a lot of people speculated. With Sting going to WWE, a lot of us were kind of in two camps, where it's you either love it and you mark out for it, or you're kind of I don't really want it, because Sting was the one guy. He was the one guy that never went over there, and he's the biggest star of all time that never went to WWE, or at least in the the modern, what you would call the modern era or the WrestleMania era. Sting is the biggest name to had not worked for Vince McMahon. And then, of course, he went over to the WWE, and I was excited because I love Sting, and I thought, oh, maybe he can get a couple of great matches, and maybe we can finally get that match with Undertaker. Or at least, if not a match with Undertaker, because I've heard a lot of people say, again, myself included, that the match probably wouldn't be very good given the age of both guys, and I thought, okay, there's a way to settle that. Put them in a tag, team them up. It's a lot of people say, it's ooh, what would you do with Gamera and Godzilla? I'd be like, how would you have them fight each other in a film? I'm like, I'll do you one better. How would you get them to team up? I'd love to see Godzilla and Gamera team up. And Sting and Undertaker on the same side. That's something you could do for a Survivor Series or something like that. That would be very, very exciting. Get somebody who could work and carry the load, and then put Sting and Undertaker with them in a 6-man tag or something. I think that could have been fantastic. But obviously didn't happen, unfortunately. But He had that match with Triple H at WrestleMania, which still pisses me off every time I think about it. And we all, I was sitting with my friends watching it that night. We were all old school WCW fans, and we were just kind of looking at each other when Triple H went over, and we're like, really? Really? And then he comes out later in the show in a suit, and you would never think that Triple H was in a fight or a match at all. He looked completely fine, completely no-sold that he'd just been in a war with Sting, and it just felt like, okay, this is deliberate, right? Like, this is, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist and think that it was done on purpose, but it really feels like it was done on purpose. And, you get to a few months later and he's working with Seth in a main event. It's like, okay, you expect Seth to go over there because no way Sting's winning the WWE title, at his age. That's not happening. But, he could put over Seth and have a great match with him. But then they did the thing where Seth had to face Cena right before then in a U.S. title match. So Sting's working with a guy who's dead tired, and then he loses. And it's like, you would never in a million years book Undertaker in that type of situation. You would never book Brock or Triple H in that type of situation. But Sting was put in that situation. And it's like, it really feels like you're doing this on purpose. And then he got hurt, and, a lot of us thought that was it. He gave his Hall of Fame speech, and that was the retirement. And it seemed like Sting was destined to become one of those guys, one of many who didn't get a proper send-off, who didn't get that great, right off into the sunset that you want for a lot of these guys. Hogan didn't get it. Austin didn't really get it because WrestleMania 19, a lot of people didn't know that was going to be his last match. The comeback with Owens was good. It was enjoyable, but it wasn't quite the grand finale that you wanted from a Stone Cold Steve Austin. Ricky Steamboat, his career got cut short. Brett definitely didn't get that. Shawn got it and then ruined it by coming back to work the tag match in Saudi. Ric Flair got it and then ruined it by coming back and working 45 more times. God, what are some of Triple H didn't get it. He just had a heart condition and his career was over, and that was it. It's Undertaker didn't really get it because COVID happened, and the Boneyard match, again, it was fun, but it's not what you want for a grand finale for the Undertaker. You want that in an arena. You want that with screaming fans chanting for him. That's what you want. And it seemed like Sting was going to be part of that long list of guys who did not get a send-off that they deserved. I'm happy to report that with this last run in AEW, with this retirement match, this pay-per-view match, I thought the match delivered. It gave us exactly what we wanted for a Sting send-off and gave him the Heroes grand finale, and he got to go off into the sunset with a fantastic, dramatic, emotional match. Violent as hell match. Wasn't perfect. I do have some critiques, some notes, but overall it was a very satisfying experience, especially for me, because I'm sitting here. I'm going to be 39 years old in a couple of weeks, and I transformed into an 8-year-old kid again watching Sting. It was like I was watching Sting again from the eyes and from the viewpoint of a child and a young fan who's just screaming for his hero to come back and win the day. And it delivered on that, and I was very happy. I was very satisfied. When the final bell rang, I started to tear up a little bit. It was a very emotional, very gratifying, and a wonderful send-off for one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. Now, some people will criticize, you go out on your back or whatever. And normally, if I were booking this situation, I would have had Sting lose, because that I am kind of very traditionally minded that way. But I think he was working with the Young Bucks, who, they're kind of established at this point. It's not like Sting derailed some super hot act that could have used the rub of working with him. The Bucks are the Bucks, and they're kind of firmly established as who they are in AEW. And they were such assholes in the lead into this thing. By the way, him rappelling from the rafters one more time, that was also a huge moment, and that was really cool to see on AEW Dynamite. I was glad they did that. But the Bucks were such heels and such jerks. And by the way, I'm actually liking this new direction for them as the evil EVPs. I think they've turned it into something that's freshened them up considerably. And they're just straight up nasty dickhead heels, and I'm like, I kind of dig it. And I'm as critical of the Bucks as anybody, and I'm like, I'm kind of digging this new run for them. So it was they were such jerks throughout the build up and throughout the match but towards the end of it, I was like, okay, Sting has to win, because these guys, you can't let these assholes go over Sting. So I thought it worked out great, and it was gratifying to watch them lose. It was gratifying to see Sting win, and not ideal that the pay-per-view feed cut out before Sting's speech, but fortunately they posted the whole thing online, which was also great to see. So yeah, one of my heroes, the last one left from all the guys that I loved and admired as a kid. Sting got an amazing send-off, and it was outstanding, and worth the price of admission for sure, because like I said, I ordered this pay-per-view for one match, and I felt like that match delivered. Now, if I had to criticize anything, Darby Allin's big glass swanton bomb spot was a little ridiculous. Just a little silly. That was a little ridiculous. No, it was one of the most senselessly dangerous things I've ever seen. It got people talking, and it's if he had just done a normal dive off of a ladder, not as many people would be talking about it, but the story was, you would have gotten the same point across anyway, where it's like, okay, Darby had a big fall and was taken out of the match, and Sting's going at it 2-on-1 while the Bucks act like jerks. So many great moments there, like the whole "we're not sorry, we hate you." That was great. Working in Sting and Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair was great. The whole thing came off great. I just think that the glass spot was a little bit over the top, and it's like, even if you want to do the glass spot, it's like, okay, you can gimmick the glass, right? Because TNA used to do glass spots, but it was always gimmicked. It was always a gimmick spot, and you could tell, but it's like, I'd rather have that than have them, shred themselves to shit with real glass. And it's, I don't know, like, not the smartest thing in the world to do from my point of view. I think when Killshot, Swerve, and Dante Fox had their Hell of War match in Lucha Underground, I think the glass was gimmicked on that one, if I recall correctly. I don't know for sure, but that was unnecessary, like, just unnecessarily violent. I'm not squeamish by any stretch of the imagination. I just thought it was like, dude, that could have gone horribly wrong if you did it. Although I read that Darby only had to get 12 stitches out of the whole thing, and I'm like, that is shockingly low compared to what I thought it would have been. But maybe it was all just a shit ton of flesh wounds. Who knows? But it was that spot was a little unnecessary, maybe. I don't know. It got people talking, so I'll give him that. But the entire match was a wild ride. I love Sting's entrance with his sons coming out dressed as Wolfpack Sting and Surfer Sting. I loved the video of him sitting in a theater watching clips of his old matches. And while it was cool that WWE acknowledged Sting's retirement on Raw through the commentators, I thought that was pretty neat. That was cool. Would have been nice to see a lot of his WCW footage that WWE owns. To me, there's no reason not to lend it out. It doesn't harm you to let AEW use your footage, to just kind of, it's all done to honor Sting and nothing else. It's not going to harm WWE to just let them use that footage. So I don't know why they would say no to that, but it's such a silly thing to me. You let AJ Styles appear at a TNA pay-per-view for the 20th anniversary. Granted, it was a pre-tape, but still, it's like, yeah, whatever. It's not going to hurt you to have some footage of Sting from WCW on an AEW show. That's not going to... If anything, it promotes Peacock. So if you want to see Sting's best stuff, go check out Peacock. I don't know. It just seems ridiculous to me. But anyway, love the match. It was everything I wanted it to be, emotionally. At least, I mean, I did not dream it was going to be that wild. It was like, I never in my wildest dreams it was going to be that crazy. But emotionally, everything I wanted emotionally, I got that out of this match. Sting, he's the greatest no-seller of all time. I've got to say that. And certain guys, when you reach that level of being like a larger-than-life superhuman, like a Superman come to life, like a Hulk Hogan, like an Ultimate Warrior, like a Goldberg, like an Undertaker with the sit-up and things like that, and the no-selling thing becomes a part of your character. I mean, certain characters can get away with that type of stuff, and it absolutely works. The Hulk Up Absolutely works. Undertaker sitting up. Absolutely works. Goldberg shrugging off somebody and just spearing him. That absolutely works. Even Warrior, who I wasn't the biggest fan of as a kid, shaking the ropes and doing his whole war dance thing. That got the crowd jazzed up. He got over for a reason. But of all the no-sellers in wrestling history, I think Sting is the best one. I don't know what it is about the way he does it, but he just kind of he doesn't react at all. He doesn't do like a big production like a Hulk up or something like that. He just doesn't react, and for some reason that makes it so much cooler. And then of course he pounds the chest and goes to town. But it's I don't know, Sting, greatest no seller of all time, and it was great to see some of that again because Sting's the man. And so as a Sting fan, I was thoroughly pleased with AEW Revolution and what happened in that main event, and a fantastic ending to a pay-per-view that was already pretty good up to that point, but it was, again, everything rose and fell with Sting. I was there for Sting and literally nothing else. So, as for the rest of the card, let me pull it up, kind of remember everything that happened. The pre-show matches, there was a 12-man tag, Bang Bang Scissor Gang won. It was all right. Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale beat Julia Hart and Sky Blue. I thought that match was pretty bad. I remember it being pretty sloppy. Is Sky Blue in the House of Black? I don't know what's going on there. It's just weird. I think Julia Hart looks like a star, but they need to do something better with her. And by the way, if she was in WWE with that theme song, when the lyric "The House Always Wins," the crowd would totally sing along with it, and it's like, that should get over in AEW, and it hasn't yet, and I don't know why. Because if she had that theme song in WWE, the crowd would sing along with it, absolutely, and she would look like a star. But anyway, match was whatever. We opened up with the TNT Championship match, Christian Cage successfully defending against Daniel Garcia. This was a pretty good heel versus face match. Garcia's slowly but surely winning me over. He was a guy I was not sold on at all initially. He was one of those guys, and AEW's had a handful of them, where they just get obsessed with pushing them. Action Andretti was one of those guys for a while. Somebody in that company really likes Dante Martin, and I don't know why. I don't see that much in him at all. But Daniel Garcia was one of those guys where he was a main fixture of storylines for it felt like 2 months or something. And I'm like, why are we focusing on this boring dude? I don't understand it. But I get you want to make new stars and get guys over, but he's not the guy. But now that he's kind of settled in and got this whole weird dance thing that's gotten him over with the audience, it's like he's slowly but surely winning me over. And I thought this match was pretty good. Christian's great. He's a great, fantastic heel. Not a fan of Mother Wayne being there at ringside. I think that's a little excessive, but overall I thought the match was good. Then we got the Continental Crown Championship with Eddie Kingston successfully defeating Bryan Danielson and getting Bryan to shake his hand per stipulation. I thought Bryan was going to win and then shake his hand anyway after earning his respect. I thought maybe they were going to do that. But Eddie retained the title, a title that I do not give a crap about. I hate this belt. I hate that it exists. It doesn't need to exist. Can somebody please explain to me, and this is part of the problem with AEW and the amount of titles they have, can somebody please explain to me what the difference is between the TNT title, the International title, and this Continental Classic title or whatever it is? You can't. They're all this. It's just another belt that's floating around where it's and I've talked about this before, where it's look, if you're going to have these belts, there should be something that differentiates them. When WCW was around, you had the world title, you had the US title, which most of us understood as the second tier belt, and you're a top heavyweight contender if you have that belt, but it's not the world title. World title's number 1, U.S. title's number 2. And then you have the TV title, which has the 15-minute time limits and everything like that. So, and Cruiserweight title is fought between cruiserweights. And it was very easy and simple to understand. And then you go all the way back to classic WWF. You had the world title, you had the IC title, and you had tag titles. And that was it. And everything made sense. And this is just, everybody's got a friggin' belt now, and it's I don't know what the rules are. I don't know. They're all contested under the same rules, same divisions. There's no difference between any of them, so it's just another belt that's floating around for no reason. So I hate this championship. It should not exist. It's bullshit, and I don't like it. That said, the match was pretty good. Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston had a pretty darn good, like, Japanese strong style type of match that you would expect. It's a shame that it's over a prize I couldn't possibly care any less about, but it is what it is. I wasn't sure why they were positioning Danielson as the heel in his retirement tour. That seems a little weird, but hopefully that stops now that he's shaken Eddie Kingston's hand and they can move on to something else. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that match. Then we got the All-Star Scramble match. Wardlow defeating Chris Jericho, Powerhouse Hobbs, Lance Archer, Hook, Brian Cage, Magnus, not Nick Aldis, but Magnus, and Dante Martin, who was in this match for some reason. I mean, it was a multi-person spot fest. It's the type of thing you expect out of these type of matches. I think having a one-fall match with 8 people in it is a little ridiculous, personally. But I will say this. 2 things I will give this match credit for. At least it wasn't a ladder match, which I don't want to see another multi-person ladder match for the rest of my life. I hate them and I groan every time they're booked. It's one of the reasons I really don't care about Money in the Bank. It's like, I don't want to watch one of those matches. I'll find out who won the briefcase afterwards. I don't care. I've become completely numb to those matches. And now it's gotten to a point where it's happened so frequently that I get viscerally angry every time they do one because it's just so obnoxious and lazy and it devalues the gimmick because so many ladder matches now don't have stories, don't have a purpose. It's just an excuse to do spots. And I don't care. I just don't care. So thank God it wasn't a ladder match. And at least Wardlow won. This match was positioned to be Wardlow's victory, and they gave it to Wardlow, and it's like, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to try and fix Wardlow? Because he was the hottest guy in the company for a hot second, then they squandered that, so it's like, is Wardlow... Wardlow finally going to get a significant push and main event a pay-per-view or something? Time will tell. We will see. So that is that. Then we got Roderick Strong defeating Orange Cassidy for the international title. I mean, that was expected. I've grown tired of Orange's run as international champion. Match was fine, I guess. The outcome was expected, and it was what it was. Kyle O'Reilly coming back and whispering something into Roderick Strong's ear sets up a potential story or angle for this week's Dynamite. Which will probably aired by the time you've seen this, depending on how soon I can get this thing edited. But that was a nice surprise and cool to see. Yeah, it was what it was. I was okay with it. Then we got the Blackpool Combat Club taking on FTR. They announced that this match had no time limit, which is probably something that should have been promoted. But when they had the time limit draw on Dynamite, I thought maybe they would do another draw here of some kind, setting up some kind of a cage match or something. But instead, they just had the Blackpool Combat Club win. What was a pretty good, hard-hitting tag match, what you would expect out of FTR. That team they're the best tag team in wrestling for a reason. And, yeah, this was another pretty good match in their repertoire. So, yeah, pretty good tag match, nice hard-hitting stuff, and the type of stuff that you expect to see out of FTR. Then we got Timeless Toni Storm successfully defending the title against Deonna Purrazzo. Match was fine, I guess. Deonna had a horrible match with Madison Rayne a couple weeks ago on Dynamite, so that made me worried about this one. It's like, oh God, has she missed a beat or something? Is something wrong with her? And this match was a little on the clunky side, but at least Toni Storm went over. Mariah May looked fine in the old school Toni Storm getup, even though I don't know what the point of it was. It was still she still looks great. Mariah May, she's a looker, and by all indications, she's immensely talented as well. So hopefully we see more of her. This match was probably the weakest match on the show, but it was okay. Then we got the match that everybody's talking about, Will Ospreay defeating Konosuke Takeshita in his AEW official debut as an AEW All Elite Wrestling Superstar. Now, a lot of people are saying match of the year, and that level of praise, 5 stars, and all that other good stuff. I didn't think it made any sense at all to debut Will Ospreay against a stablemate unless you were going to break him away from the stable first. I don't know. It's Will Ospreay early on. He looks like a star. He looks like somebody that they can build around and do something with. And this match was designed to kind of, get him off on a good foot. And to that end, I guess it worked. He got to show off what he could do in this really long back and forth match. But Takeshita is a guy, like, again, I'm not saying he's a bad worker. He's one of those guys that AEW is just obsessed with, and they think he's like, they treat him like he's a main eventer, and I just do not see it at all. And it's nothing between the ropes. It's everything else. He can't connect with the audience. He's just not that interesting. He's just not. But they push him like he is, and I just don't understand it. Like, if I were handling this match, instead of doing the whole 20-minute back and forth, epic match type formula, I would have had Ospreay just beat him, like, relatively quickly, like, 10 to 12 minutes or something. I don't know why, because now it's like the bar's set too high, and people are going to be expecting Will Ospreay to have this type of match all the time, when I would be promoting him as a guy that's, like, so good that he beats people fairly easily. Not like a Goldberg thing, but a guy that's like, if you put him in the ring with somebody who's lower on the card than him, he's going to beat him fairly easily. And then he gets to have the competitive matches with the main eventers and the pay-per-view closer, the top tier guys like the MJFs and the Samoa Joes and those type of guys, instead of having those type of matches with everybody. I don't know. To me, it would have made more sense to make Will's pay-per-view debut a little bit more dominant, show him off as like this amazingly talented, dominant athlete, and let him win. But again, they're just obsessed with making Takeshita look really, really good. And I don't get it. But I don't get it. Again, the match it achieved exactly what they were going for, having a 5-star match that people online would call a 5-star match. But personally, again, I didn't think it made any sense to have him go up against a stablemate first. That seemed like a weird choice. Again, unless they did a breakup from Don Callis on TV leading up to this match just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The setup for the match didn't make a whole lot of sense. And then they have the match, and it's, it's the type of match that's going to get high star ratings, but I don't know. Like, that's not how I would have debuted Ospreay, if that makes any sense. Again, very impressive and, very athletically dynamic and things like that, but I wonder if the bar's been set too high now, because now people are calling this the match of the year, and I'm like, okay, where does he go from here, I guess? Like, what, does he start having, like, 6- and 7-star matches on the regular? I don't know. Like, he's going to be expected to have, like, that level of match every single time, and that's why it's like, sometimes it's okay to have 10 to 12-minute matches once in a while. I don't know, that's just me. Maybe I'm being too nitpicky. Then we got the world title match. Samoa Joe successfully defending against Adam Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland. I've really gotten on the Swerve Strickland hype train lately. I think he has been really good, one of the better guys in AEW. The more I watch him, the more I think, man, maybe he's the one that should have beat MJF for the title, because I don't see it in Joe in 2024. There was a time when Joe was a really special talent, and he's gotten better, like, in this latest run. He's picked it up a step or two, but but he's not as interesting as he was, like, 20 years ago, when he was in Ring of Honor and TNA and all that other stuff. I don't know. Like, part of me wishes they just gone to Swerve and just put the belt on him, because he seems to be the new hotness right now. And I personally was kind of hoping he would go over in this match, but he did not. So, as I expected. I wanted it, but I didn't expect it. And, the match overall was pretty good. It was a, nice action-packed triple threat match. But Joe won, and I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, like, would have been nice. Would have been nice if Swerve won. I'm just saying, but I also knew that wasn't going to happen. So we got to do Joe versus Wardlow again, and I'm like, looking at this situation, I'm like, can Wardlow go over, please? Like, can we just try? Can we just try and put it on the new heavyweight that can just plow through people? Can we just try it and see how it goes? I don't know. I think maybe Wardlow's time has passed. I don't know. Maybe they missed the boat on him. I don't know. But can we try it? Just please. Because I'm also, and I've made this point in recent videos, like, where the long championship reign has become the norm, and I'm kind of getting tired of it. It's okay to shake things up a little bit with, like, a quick, champion loses his first title defense. Like, it's okay to shake things up once in a while, and it's not like, I don't need it to go back to the Attitude Era or the Monday Night Wars where the titles were changing hands every week to try and win the ratings war, but not everybody has to be champion for a year and a half either. There's room for both. And I think as long as the character is interesting, the one holding the title is interesting, then you can keep the title going. But, right now in WWE alone, you've got Rhea Ripley, who's been champ for about a year. You've got Gunther, who's been champion for, longest reigning IC champion. You've got Roman, who's been champion for 3 years. You've got Seth, who's been champion ever since they introduced that belt. He's the only one to hold it. And it's just like, and then AEW, like everybody who's held the AEW world title, almost everybody has been a long-term, champion. And it seems like, Orange held on to that international title, like, what was it, 8 months out of the last 10 or something, like since that belt was introduced. I don't know. It's just it's okay to shorten them up a little bit. Like it's okay to shake things up and not have every single champion be a long-term champion. That's just my feelings. But we shall see how all of that goes. And of course, we had the main event with Sting and Darby Allin successfully defending the the AEW Tag Team Championship against the Young Bucks. Now the AEW Tag Team Championship will be vacated moving forward, so we will have new Tag Team Champions. But Sting is retired. Like I already said, fantastic ending. Loved it, and worth the price of admission for me on a card that I wasn't. Again, I was there for Sting and literally nothing else. So to that end, it delivered big time. And I guess I can wrap this up with some current events going on. WrestleMania 40 is shaping up. We have both of our women's matches firmly set, Bayley versus Io Sky. With all of Damage Control against Bayley now, probably would have made more sense to have Dakota turn heel at Mania. If Bayley's not going to win the title, it probably would have made more sense to save Dakota's heel turn for Mania, but because they did it beforehand, that tells me it's like, well, Bayley's probably winning at Mania then. That's probably what that means. But we've got Rhea versus Becky, but you've got Nia Jax and Liv Morgan kind of throwing monkey wrenches into the works, so who knows what's going to happen there. And we have our tag match for night 1 is set, The Rock and Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, with the stipulation, which makes Cody versus Roman very interesting. The stipulation that if Cody and Seth win, then the Bloodline is completely barred from ringside for the Cody-Roman match in Night 2. But if the Bloodline wins, then it's Bloodline rules WrestleMania Night 2. So I'm thinking if Cody and Seth win, Cody's losing at Mania, because they're going to find some other way to screw Cody over, like possibly a Seth heel turn or something like that. Because I'm looking at this and I'm like, Seth's going to turn, isn't he? And that's how they're going to screw Cody over. Is that what they're going to do? Please don't do that. Please just let Cody win, for the love of God. But if the Bloodline wins the tag match, then it's like, okay, it's Bloodline rules, and then Cody has to overcome the odds and be, Superman, and finds somehow, some way to ultimately win against impossible odds, similar to Austin and Dude Love from Over the Edge 1998, where the deck was completely stacked against Stone Cold Steve Austin. He still found a way to win. So that'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. We have Seth versus Drew for the World Heavyweight title set for night 2. And we have a gauntlet match for next week's Raw with the winner facing Gunther at WrestleMania for the IC title. Not quite the Lesnar Gunther match we all wanted, but given the circumstances, it's like, okay, we could get something good here. We could, who are the participants again? Let me pull up the full list, because there were a couple of weird ones on there. The heavy hitters right now are Sami Zayn and I think Chad Gable. Those are the two that you're looking at and you're thinking, those are probably the ones with the highest probability to win. Bronson Reed is in there. JD McDonough. I tell you who's not winning. It's JD McDonough. Ricochet's in there, the last Intercontinental Champion, and Shinsuke Nakamura is in there. I think it's either going to be Chad Gable or Sami Zayn, given Sami's probably the biggest name in there, and Chad is the guy that has a pre-established story with Gunther and never really has unresolved issues with Gunther, so there's something to play with there. So, yeah, it could be either one of those two, and hopefully we get a really good IC title match at WrestleMania, because last year's was a banger, and so I don't know, it might be hard to top that one, but we'll see how it all goes. And what else is going on in the world of wrestling? Oh, Paul Heyman's going to the Hall of Fame, which is Deserved, I would say. I mean, Paul Heyman's not exactly my favorite person, especially with some of the stories I've heard about how he ran ECW. I mean, the one that got me was when I heard that, like, coked up Tammy Sitch, he was using her credit cards to book flights and hotels for the talents. And I'm like, damn, really? That's a crime. So he's not exactly the best human being on planet Earth, but as a performer, as a guy who brings life and energy to a wrestling product, he has done it for a very, very long time. So I think this is deserved, and I look forward to seeing what his speech is, because that'll be a fascinating one. I imagine one of the front runners for, like, greatest Hall of Fame speech of all time, right up there with, like, Bobby Heenan and Jake. So we'll see. I've also heard snippets that Bull Nakano is going to go in, which I think is deserved. Great talent. At a time when the WWE didn't really care about women's wrestling, Bull Nakano was an amazing talent and, deserves to be remembered. So I think it's cool that she's going in. I think it's bullshit that Bull Nakano is going in now, and Luna Vachon, who absolutely deserved her own induction, just kind of got grouped in as part of the legacy class, where it's like, oh, the old people that nobody knows anymore, we'll just slip her in there. And I'm like, first of all, that's insulting to be in that legacy class or whatever that was, where it's like, oh, the people you don't know, we're just going to sneak them in there. Like Lord Alfred Hayes. I'm like, how is Lord Alfred Hayes not getting his own induction? That guy was super important to the WWF in a non-wrestling capacity, but what are we doing here? I didn't agree with that whole thing. If you're going to put him in and give him the full star treatment that everybody else got. And the fact that Luna got rolled into that really upset me. So I'm willing to do a do-over on that one and give Luna her own induction, but that's neither here nor there. Bull Nakano getting in, totally cool. I think it's great, and she deserves to be there. So I'm hoping, can Demolition go in? Because I'm thinking of all the guys that I grew up watching, and who are the ones that haven't gone in yet that should be in there? And Demolition is definitely high on my list of, like, because, Rick Rude was high on my list, but then Rude got in. Jake was high on my list, but then Jake got in. Savage was obviously number one on my list, and Savage got in. And I'm looking at this like, Demolition, I would really like it if they went in there. It would be nice. It would be nice. So, fingers crossed, here's hoping. Demolition Hall of Fame 2024. Let's do it. Because it is long overdue, in my opinion. So, that is that. One more thing I want to talk about, and that is the recent kerfluffle that went on online last week. This might feel like old news now, but screw it. I couldn't get to talk about it until today. And that was the whole situation with Maxine Dupree getting booed at a live event over her poor performance. I didn't see the match. I only saw the after effects, so I can't comment on that. What I will say is that I am absolutely shocked that this became a news story at all whatsoever. And the fact that this got any traction online surprises the holy heck out of me, because it's the entertainment business, and even in the realm of entertainment, like, wrestling is harsh even by entertainment standards, and it's like you offer up your art, and people are going to judge you, and if they don't like what you offer, they're going to voice their opinions. This is a thing that's been going on forever in every form of entertainment. I came on this YouTube channel, and I have been critical of so many guys over the years in the world of professional wrestling. Triple H, I have reamed into him more than anybody. John Cena, I reamed into him more than anybody. But you know what? They didn't have campaigns online telling people to shut up. Like saying that people are wrong for saying anything bad about them. They just, and say whatever you want about John Cena or Roman Reigns or any of those guys who got a lot of criticism. They handled it about as well as any professional possibly could, and I will give them all the props in the world for that. No one got it harsher than those guys. And, I mean, I'm thinking of years and years of the "you fucked up" chants, all sorts of things. And it's a part of wrestling, and you might not like it, but that's a part when, for years, WWE used to say it. When you put down your money, you're allowed to cheer or boo whoever you want for any reason that you want. And I thought that was like that was an unspoken agreement. It's like the audience is allowed to cheer, boo whoever they want for whatever reason. Sometimes it results in shows getting ruined, like SummerSlam 04, where the Toronto crowd completely just ruined that entire show. But they paid the money. It's their prerogative to do that if they want to. And it's understood that, if you don't perform well, they're going to let you know about it. And, and that was one of the things with this whole women's revolution. Going back again to, before I get into that part of the rant, when, again, this exists in other forms of entertainment too, like when He-Man and the Masters of the Universe Revelations dropped, I was so nasty to Kevin Smith and to anybody involved in making that thing, except for the voice cast. I didn't ream into them as much, but or the animators. It was the writers and the producers who were at fault for that. And they came back saying like, oh, you're fake fans and this, that, or the other. And I'm like, no, we're not. I am a fan. I told you how I felt. And now you're making me angry by telling me that I'm somehow not allowed to criticize you when you make something bad. And look, I'm sure Maxine didn't go out there and intend to have a bad match. Nobody does, unless you're Owen Hart and a prankster. Nobody intends to go out there and have a bad match. It just happens. And it's happened to the best of them. Name a wrestler, I'll name a bad match that they've had at some point in their career, except for maybe Ricky Steamboat. I can't recall any bad Ricky Steamboat matches that I've seen. But, it happens, and what you do when that happens is like you dust yourself off and you get better, and that's how it is. You're going to get those crowd reactions once in a while, and going back to what I was saying about the whole women's revolution thing and fighting for equality of the female talents in wrestling, giving them a shot and giving them a chance and letting them deliver, that part of it's fine, but you take everything that comes with it. If you want true equality, because I have seen male wrestlers get raked over the coals many, many, many times over the years. Hulk Hogan, I watched him go to WCW and get booed. Hulk Hogan, who, the idea of Hogan getting booed at that, earlier on in my fandom was unfathomable. But by that point, it was like, I'm watching fans boo Hulk Hogan. It happens. It happens. And, all you can do is dust yourself off and get better. And I've seen a lot of male performers get better after being poorly received. Kurt Angle, his WWF pay-per-view debut, his debut with the company on camera for a live televised event, and he got a boring chant. Kurt Angle got a boring chant in his debut, and I remember for the first few weeks he was around, everybody was carrying signs saying, "What's Kurt's angle?" because they were bored by him, they didn't understand him, and they didn't get it. And then, of course, he won everybody over because he's Kurt freaking Angle, and he, won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck, and he had the 3 eyes and all that other fun stuff. He won them all over. And I'm not saying Maxime Dupree is going to be Kurt Angle next month or anything like that, but take the criticism as like, okay, I need to get better, and then try to get better. Now, I've seen a little bit of Maxine. I mean, obviously, she's very rough around the edges. I like her more as a valet than a wrestler, quite honestly. I think she works well with the Alpha Academy and fits in well with that group. So if they want to stick her as a valet full time, I'm okay with that because I think she does just fine in that role. As like a mixed tag, sometimes wrestler, I think that could work for her. But if she wants to do this and she wants to get better and better, then it's like, okay, then go get better. God, I'm thinking about some of the other examples. Like, I was at that Ring of Honor show, WrestleMania 29 weekend, where Matt Hardy, the whole crowd, I didn't say this personally. I want to make that clear. I didn't personally say this. But the large portion of the audience was chanting, "You fat fuck," at Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy, one of the biggest tag team stars in the history of wrestling, and they're chanting, "You fat fuck" at him. It's like, the negativity, it comes with the territory. It's going to happen. It's not the end of the world. So I was shocked that this picked up any kind of traction. There were like judgments being made that's like, oh, is it right to do this to somebody who's a professional wrestler? And it's like, it happens all the time. It's part of the business. And part of any like entertainment-based business. It's part of any sport. Like, you think if Daniel Jones goes out there and throws 3 interceptions, I'm not going to say anything about it? It's like, oh, well, he's trying his best. And I'm like, no, screw you. Win me games, you jackass, and prove yourself worthy of the stupid contract they gave you. I'm a Tommy DeVito guy. Can we get more Tommy DeVito? But in any case, I'm just kind of rambling at this point. But when that got traction online, I was shocked. I was like, I thought we all understood that if you perform poorly, the audience is going to let you know, and you just kind of brush yourself off and move on and try to come back better next time. And that was kind of the understanding that we had. It wasn't, I don't know. I mean, I think back to that Raw match. It was, what was it? It was Trish and JBL versus Chris Nowinski and Jackie Gata. I don't think Jackie Gata ever escaped that match. She never recovered from that, and that's unfortunate because I argued that wasn't her fault. She was put out there way too soon. And I don't know. I don't know if her confidence was shook after that or what, but she was never. She was more of a valet moving forward in a non-wrestling capacity, and then kind of left the business a couple years later. So she did not have the most glamorous run in professional wrestling, and I wonder if that match just kind of like destroyed her confidence. I don't know. So I'm not here to destroy anybody's confidence. I'm not here to rake Maxine over the coals or anything like that. I'm just saying it's like, look, your match was bad. The audience let you know. Dust yourself off, get in the gym, hit the performance center, get better. That's what you got to do. You take the feedback and you get better. You can't. And I made an entire video about why we need YouTube dislike counts, and I think it's stupid that YouTube took them away. And I will argue that until the day I die, because I need negative feedback. Everybody needs negative feedback. If you're in any kind of public space, you need negative feedback, or else you can't get better. And I'm a true believer of that. And some people are just going to be mean, but you've got to be able to kind of sift through, all right, who are the ones just being trolls and who are the ones that are being legitimately critical and have a point that I could use to improve myself moving forward. I got some pretty harsh feedback on my book that I wrote and self-published. I got some harsh feedback on that. I was like, good point. A lot of people didn't like the cover. That was the one that I got the most. A lot of people did not like the cover, and it was like, or covers, because it was 2 volumes. But I'm like, okay, food for thought. Do better next time. If you publish another book, do better next time. Maybe even update the cover of the current book and get that fixed. So, not making any announcements yet or anything like that. Just saying that it's put the idea in my head. Okay, this is not what people like. Maybe I should do it this way the next time. And that's how you got to approach that stuff. You can't let it you can't you can't shame people for telling you that you did something bad. You can't throw it back at them and say it's like, oh, that's wrong and disrespectful and all this other stuff. It's like, no, maybe they have good points and I can learn and grow from that. So that's my take on the matter, and that is all I have for you today. I have ranted long enough. So once again, question and answers video, the email that you can send them to is in a link in the description, so check that out. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I will see you all later.